You begin with no instruction, you jump off your gunship and explore a broken down alien frigate. The frigate crashes and throws you onto the alien world of Talon 4. There's nothing quite like Metroid Prime. This could be due to the fact that it operates like a true 3D Metroidvania, or maybe it's because of the amazing lore and environmental interaction. But you also can't forget that this game is an isolated experience. You learn everything through the lens of Samus and not some third-party interaction, which happened a lot during the third game of the trilogy. After playing Metroid Prime for my first time with the remastered version, I definitely see why many people regard it as the best game of the franchise. In writing this script, I did some research to see what other games are similar to Metroid Prime besides the obvious, and there wasn't really a definitive answer, so is Metroid Prime really that unique of a game? And I think the simple answer is yes, especially considering that many games following its release have taken inspiration from it, but nobody has actually emulated it. And no, I don't think this is a bad thing, as copycat games can become exhausting, but it's also a testament to how special the Prime series actually is, and for someone that grew up playing Prime 2 and 3, I think something that caught my attention without even realizing it as a kid is the amazing immersion, lore, and interactions with the environments that the trilogy offers. And with Prime, I got to relive this experience on Talon 4, but with the more critical eye this time around. The Prime series really set the bar high for me growing up, as I expected every game to have all these unique bosses, enemies, and flora that coexist with the environment. However, this is not the case for most games outside of maybe the Zelda series. Upon exploring the beautiful overworld of Talon 4, you're introduced to the Zoomer and Bloodflower, which are some enemies that are clearly unique to this environment. As you continue to access new areas, you're faced with all sorts of native enemies such as the Sheogoth, the Magmor, and the seemingly cousins of Sporespawn. In addition to these enemies blending with their environment, you can also get some backstory to them by scanning them or pirate data to add to the lore. With the Sheogoth, you learn that they've been picking off the space pirates and sneaking into their facilities in the drifts. This slight backstory just adds on to each encounter you might have with them. Now, despite other games having vast bestiaries and lore, something that separates Metroid Prime is the fact that you have to manually scan pretty much everything, even in the heat of battle. Going through this section of the drifts, I found myself in a plentiful amount of trouble because I was trying to scan all of the data and the enemies while constantly being fired on. Something I also noticed in this section of the game is that Metroid Prime made a point to make backtracking rewarding. You have to interact with the environment to unlock new abilities, which also in many cases changes the landscape around you. When you shut down the pirate facility, you have to track back in the dark, utilizing your new visor while taking on waves of space pirates. This manipulation of the environment is consistent throughout the rest of the game. In the phase on mines, you have to power up this crane to find a missile expansion. In the Kozo ruins, you have to drain this pool to unlock the ice beam. This constant manipulation of the environment really places you within the game rather than just playing as a character that just exists within the world. Pretty much everything you do in Metroid Prime involves changing the setting around you to progress, whether it be shooting missiles at weak stones to open paths or solving puzzles to raise water levels. You are doing something that changes the layout of the world. There are plenty of other games out there that involve mass changes to the landscape, but it usually happens all at once rather than it being a constant game of environmental manipulation. The Arkham series changed based off the plot of the game rather than the gameplay, with Poison Ivy destroying many parts of the prison island. Interestingly enough, I see the Arkham series being a comparison thrown around to Metroid Prime for it being another 3D Metroidvania. While I agree with it being somewhat a Metroidvania, I didn't find myself playing it with the worry of getting lost. Honestly, I think the best comparison to Metroid Prime could be Super Metroid. You begin on a more linear space station / frigate, then you venture to an alien planet that slowly opens up around you. From the time you land on Talon 4, you have to constantly track where you are and pay attention to all possible paths. It begins more linear in the Chozo ruins, as you have to unlock a few staple items before taking on the giant plant insect that I won't even try to pronounce. But once you defeat it, you gain access to the Magmor caverns and the Phendrana drifts, and from here, the game really becomes a free-for-all. Your next objective, though not said, involves going all the way to the drifts to get the Morph Ball boost, then returning to the Talon overworld to get the double jump, which took me a long time to figure out. I pride myself for not looking up gameplay walkthroughs, but to get to this part of the Chozo ruins, you have to remember passing a small spider strip after beating Thardus all the way back in the drifts. I'm guilty of looking up a walkthrough here for sure, but while I was lost, I was able to find a handful of upgrades that I probably wouldn't have gotten if I didn't decide to go explore on my own. Now, it can definitely become exhausting trying to keep track of every little detail in every single room, but that's also kind of the beauty of it. You can't go into the game expecting to just mindlessly progress and defeat enemies, and if that's what you're looking for, then I doubt Metroid is the franchise for you. Now, there are still plenty of more linear portions of the game that focus on combat, such as this stretch in the Phazon Mines, which pretty much has you taking on space pirates in every room. But having little scenes like this helps break up that linearity and focuses you again on the immersion. You're not just in a random section on Talon 4, but you're reminded that you are investigating a heavily guarded experimental space pirate facility. And I don't want to go on comparing other games, but another comparison I see is Fallen Order, and I found the sections here to be much more linear, and I definitely didn't need to worry about getting lost. A better comparison could be Prime 2 and 3, however, the sequel titles were not near as interconnected as the world of Prime 1. Now, I haven't played those in a while, so please do correct me if I'm wrong, but Metroid Prime could have you visiting other sections of the game at almost any given point, while Prime 2 and 3 had you remaining in the same areas for the most part until it's obviously time to move on. And something else that Prime has over its sequels that makes it more comparable to Super Metroid is the complete isolation that it puts you in. There's virtually no dialogue, no story outside of the scannable lore and environmental clues, and no character interaction. You are simply just Samus on an alien planet learning everything at the same time as she is. You're tasked with fighting the various enemies, the space pirates, and uncovering the poison that has affected the planet. Now, this is never directly stated, but it is implied. You slowly begin purifying the planet by first defeating the poisonous giant insect, and then destroying the space pirate research facility in the drifts. Everything in Prime 3 was more laid out, and you even had a voice constantly telling you about your next objective. You know you're looking for Rundus, and you know you have to destroy the Leviathan seed. I can't speak as much for Prime 2 since it's been so long, but this style of storytelling in isolation is not familiar to me with anything outside of Super Metroid. I found some of the best parts of Metroid Prime involve me being completely lost just exploring the planet looking for the next objective. And as funny as it sounds, I enjoyed not knowing what I was doing at any given point. It just made me want to learn more based on the minimal amount of information that I had. On top of this, you never have to leave the planet, so everything at least feels somewhat proximate, but the whole world is just wonderfully interconnected and blends seamlessly. And because you don't have any form of communication with an outsider, it is truly just you playing through the lens of Samus. There's not many games out there that actually give you this sense of isolation and interaction with the environment. I say Metroid Prime is one of a kind, not because it's a great game, but because it is, in my opinion, the only true 3D Metroidvania. I spent time doing some research for games that are similar because I actually want to play them, but none of the games mentioned involve all the qualities that actually make up for a true Metroidvania. It's common for other titles to take aspects of certain genres, but with Metroid Prime, I do consider it to be the vision of Super Metroid in a 3D setting. Hopefully we can get remasters of 2 and 3 as well, but I'm definitely excited to learn literally anything about Metroid Prime 4. Now, something I think that would be really cool yet probably not going to happen is a 3D version of Super Metroid. Imagine exploring Brinstar Deaths in a 3D setting, then taking on Kraid in some gigantic forested arena, but one can only hope. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Metroid Prime in the comments below, and please drop any games you might find to be most similar because I'm sure they're out there. So, until next time.